Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Hello.
True Serial Podcast, Episode 4. Um,
Episode 4
episode
already.
4.
This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And big shout out to all the murder minions in the chat. Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Yeah. I like that name.
I do
The
too.
murder
I
minions.
really like the murder minions.
Well, we're murder minions too, right? That's
Yeah.
why we call it, because we are. I'm happily a murder minion.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are murder minions right there along with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's been an interesting week. Uh, I've got
Bit.
a
Mm-hmm.
I've got an interview set up. Well, not an interview. I have orientation set up for Saturday for a new job. Um,
Wonderful.
so I won't know until Saturday. But my week's going to change a little bit. So I may have
Yeah.
to look at the time frame when we do the podcast here
It's okay.
from going forward.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah.
So
And
just to give you guys a heads up, it might not be Thursday nights anymore. It would be hard to. Well, we're waiting to see what the schedule comes up with. So, how's it going with you, Claire? You see, you're sounding a little better.
I am sounding a little better. I just did an hour or so podcast with a bunch of other people, like a panel. And I got to laugh it out. Every time I laugh, I have to mute because I literally go into choking fits. But it loosened everything up, so I actually sound a little bit better.
Well,
Um,
that's always a bonus.
yeah, yeah. This will be the last one until Mayhem. No, so I'll be all right. Oh no,
So
we won't be. You'll see me tomorrow morning. I
tomorrow
won't be
morning,
seen.
yeah, bright
Yeah,
and
that's right.
early.
Sorry, Chris. Don't send the attack to us. I forgot. I'm sorry. I'll be there. I
For the,
promise. I
for
will.
those of you that follow us, um, oh, I have a minor echo.
Do you? I don't
Um,
hear it.
I'm not seeing.
Raven hears it. It might be
Yeah,
something on your end then, because you're in the same place, or is she separate somewhere else right now?
I don't. I didn't change anything. Everything's good there. It's let me know if it continues, and I'll have to check
Mm-hmm.
something out here. Well, it's maybe that'll help.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try that. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's. Well, no, I can hear it mine now. Maybe it.
I don't hear it at all, so I don't know.
Huh.
You have no echo on my end. You're actually clearer than usual, and the sound actually seems balanced between the two of us right now.
Hmm.
No,
Well,
I
we'll
don't
just
know
see if
what
it
they hear
continues.
out there.
What was I? What was I saying? Oh, yes. So for those of you that follow us on Hereticals, tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. is the 100th episode of Six Pack. So
Ah,
that'll be fun.
look.
We have some interesting guests with it that will be joining us. We have, excuse me, Steve McRae and Cheshire Vic from Non
Eh?
Sequitur Show will be joining us, along with Oz from the Atheist Network Group,
Yeah,
and
Raging
Nakasuchi
Atheist.
will also be there.
Right. It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be good. Gonna be great conversations. They always are. Each of those people bring it when they come, so it'll be great.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And yeah, so that'll be interesting. 100 episodes. I think Chris has got something good going for us. I've got some funny stuff for social media stuff. Raven says it's subtle and comes in a little later, maybe a few seconds. So
Hmm.
I'm not seeing
That's
anything.
curious.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not seeing anything on my end to show for the echo. So I don't know. Maybe it'll clear up. But yeah, Krabby doesn't hear it and Claire doesn't hear it. So if anybody else hears the echo, let me know. I
Hmm.
don't. Well, we can. I don't know. I said I don't see anything. Like I said, in the audio and everything looks good. I'm not seeing any feedback, echo loops, or nothing.
Well, as long as she's saying it's subtle, it's
Yeah,
not going to be too offensive to anybody out on YouTube right now.
maybe.
So you can come up with what to fix.
Yeah, we'll switch that over, see if that helps. So,
Okay.
yeah. So that's what's going on there. You've
Yeah.
got Mayhem tomorrow night too, don't you?
Yes. After I go to bed after Hereticals, I will do Mayhem at like 11 o'clock through midnight. I'm looking forward to it. I missed it when it was gone. It's always a lot of fun. Uh, We're gonna be talking about some odd things here and there. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the morning, really, because that usually gets me going for Fridays. Sometimes I have 3 or 4 things on a Friday, and that's the first thing, and hops me up for it. But
So, so for today's episode, we are okay. So, Crone heard it earlier. Nothing now. Pete says there's no echo now. So, maybe I fixed it.
maybe you did. Yeah.
I don't know what I did, but
Well, maybe it was just a StreamYard or a YouTube thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
The what we're gonna be talking about tonight is I've got 5 different serial killers, 3 male, 2 female, and we're actually going to be looking at and discussing their methods of how they killed their victims.
Yeah.
So we will be going into a little gruesome detail. So just a heads up for those, as always, trigger warnings for these episodes because we are talking about murder, serial murder to be exact. Some of them are not very nice. I mean, none of them are nice, but some of them are a lot more brutal than others. To give you a rundown of who we're going to be talking about tonight, we're going to be talking about Ted Bundy. I've got a couple of his. I didn't pull all 30 of his victims because we would be here all forever, but I've got 6 or 7. Then we've got Jack the Ripper. We have the Toolbox Killers. And for those of you who don't know the names on those, the Toolbox Killers are Lawrence Bittaker and Ray Norris. There's a tag team serial killer bunch there. We've got. I'm gonna let Claire pronounce this one. Leonardo.
That's Cianciulli. It's an Italian name, like John, like Sean Ciulli.
So there you go.
That's right.
It's the lady.
I believe she's Italian. Leonardo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lady who turned her victims into soap. And
Yeah.
then
That's quite clever of her, and quite clever of you, because my voice is so bad right now. Even if I mispronounce it, they wouldn't know.
and
Such a
then we've also got Jane Topin. She is a serial
Oh,
poisoner from 1885 that we're going to take a look at too.
yeah, old-fashioned poison. Here we go.
Yeah. So those are the ones we're going to be looking at. Which one do you want to start with first, Claire?
Oh, where you're reading, let's see. Let's get those toy box people out of the way.
You
Then
want to talk
we'll
about okay? Let's talk about Lawrence Bittaker and Ray Norris first.
evil men.
Yes, very very evil. So in let me push this over here so I can read it better. So in 1979, Lawrence Bittaker and Ray Norris had claimed their first victim, a 16-year-old named Lindy Schaefer. Norris had picked her up in Redondo Beach and forced her into the van. He duct taped her mouth, bound her arms. Bittaker drove the van to a fire road in the San Gabriel Mountains. Both men then raped the woman, and Bittaker wrapped a straightened wire coat hanger around her neck, tightened the wire with a vice grip pliers, strangling her to death. Their next victim... Oh, go ahead.
Excessive.
Yeah, very excessive. That just had to be...
Can I ask you something,
Yeah,
G?
go ahead.
When you look at strangulations that use actually devices like that, does that say anything to you psychologically, like it does to me? Like they can't lay their hands on the victim because it can't be that personal because we got like small man syndrome or something.
No, not in this case.
Okay.
I could see where it could be in other cases.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the ones that just straight strangle their victims, like
Yeah.
the Boston Strangler, whatnot. But both these men raped her first. So and then usually strangulation is very intimate way of killing people. But with Bittaker and Norris, they were doing it for the sheer brutality, the sheer malice
Yeah.
of it all.
Yeah,
Because of the way it was done with vice grips and coat hanger.
and
That was
especially since we saw the progression later. I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. But if I saw that case first, I'd be like, because rape and murder are two separate things. A man can often get to rape and never get to murder.
Yeah.
But
So, but
yeah.
in their cases, they escalated quick. Their next victim was 18-year-old Andrea Hall. They did the same thing, picked her up, put her in the van, drove her off for a while. As she went to the cooler for a beer, Norris jumped her, bound her arms and legs, taped her mouth shut. Then, once again, they found a fire road and they raped her several times. Bittaker then dragged her from the van, and Norris left to get beer. When he returned, Hall was gone, and Bittaker was looking at Polaroid pictures. He had stabbed her with an ice pick in both ears and strangled her, and then threw her body off a cliff. It didn't say how he strangled her this time. My guess was probably with his hands.
I don't know. They're saying the coat hanger was consistent from what I read. But
Yeah, but with this one, it was different because when they actually, I don't remember if they found her. It was just from the pictures and stuff is how the body was identified. I don't remember if they'd found that body. But they did when they were interviewed. They went into extreme detail on each of their victims.
yeah, they were
So
themselves.
if it doesn't say that they were strangled with something, I think it would be more he was strangled by hand. Yeah, but the stabbing, the ice pick in both her ears, that's just cruel. That's just being cruelty.
It's an escalation of torture.
Yeah, that's an escalation of torture. That means they're not getting the same thrill they got from the first one. He needed to push it farther. Because at this point, the Bittaker had killed both of them so far. Norris was there, but he didn't. He raped them, but he hadn't killed them. And if you listen to their stories, Norris claims at one point he never killed any of them. All he did was rape them. It was all Bittaker. But then Bittaker at one point claimed it was Norris that killed them. So
wouldn't the video that the FBI has on file kind of throw that one?
Well, they have audio. They don't have actual video. They have the tape recording, which is
bad enough.
Yeah, that is nasty. It is hard. I haven't heard the tape. I've read the transcript, and it's hard to read. I don't imagine what it was like.
They're using it balls to the wall for training now because it was so horrific. They use it for training.
So the next two victims they had picked up in Hermosa Beach. It was actually they spotted two girls at a bus stop. Jackie Gillum at 15 and Leah Lamp at 13. Lamp went to the back door of the van and Norris hit her in the head with a bat. A short scuffle broke out and Bittaker's help. Norris subdued the teams and bound both of them. Then once again they drove to a fire road. They kept the girls alive for 2 days. They've escalated now to rape and torture. The whole time with wire coat hangers and pliers. They made the audio recording of the events. Eventually, Bittaker stabbed Gillum in both ears with the ice pick. When she didn't succumb to her injuries, both men took turns strangling her until she died. And then Bittaker strangled Lamp while Norris hit her in the head with his sledgehammer 7 times, and then they dumped the bodies off the cliff.
So how does he get to say he didn't contribute to the murders if he's hitting it in the head? Well,
like I said, if he had claimed at one point before they both, confessed what was going on, he claimed it was all Bittaker. He never killed him. He only raped him. But it turns out that he did, especially with.
He doesn't sound like the dominant partner in this little duo.
What you're seeing here is textbook escalation.
Of torture.
Because if you remember the original one,
they just did what they did and then strangled her.
Yeah, they raped her, strangled her.
Rid of the body.
The next one is rape, strangulation, ear picks. This next time it was torture for 2 days. So they're escalating on what they can get away with.
Which often happens with sexual-based murders.
Yeah, and
very often.
That is what they talk about is the fact that it's harder for them to get that gratification for what they're doing.
Yeah. That's true.
So as it escalates more and more, it's going to take more and more for them to get that release. and that's
Yeah.
what was going on here with Bittercore and Norris. They needed to take it one step further. How far can they
Yeah.
take it?
Yeah.
Now, luckily, Shirley Sanders escaped after being raped.
That
So
helped the case
yeah, that helped
tremendously.
the case tremendously. Yeah, like you said, because police, when she went to the police, they showed her pictures of the men, and she identified Lawrence
Yep.
and Roy. Now, that was September 30th. At this
Yep.
time, they still hadn't been found. They kidnapped 16-year-old Lynette Lenford on October 31st,
Yep.
raping and torturing her while driving around Los Angeles instead of heading to the
Taking
usual
turns.
spot. So they were taking
That's
turns
crazy.
driving around town. Yeah.
So they knew they were being looked for. They knew not to stay still because they could be spotted. Yeah. So it's very the escalation is really hard, because it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
They
So
really did a number on her
this
too.
is this is the one that they've got the tape recording for. Was Lynette
Yeah.
Lefford.
Hmm.
Now what happened here? They stabbed her several times, tortured her with pliers. During
Yep.
the torture, her screams and pleas were tape recorded as Whitaker
Yeah.
repeatedly beat her elbows with a sledgehammer, all the time demanding that she stop screaming.
While he's hitting
While
her,
he's
like,
hitting
stop
her with a
screaming, whack.
hammer,
Stop screaming, whack. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
crimping
cruel.
her with
Cruel.
pliers.
Yeah.
So eventually he did strangle her with the wire hanger.
So sadistic, like
Yeah.
so over.
And then instead of tossing the body off a cliff um, like they normally did, they left it on a random lawn in Hermosa Beach to see the local reaction in the newspaper. The body was found
Yeah.
the next day, caused a quite disturbing, only days since the arrest of the hillside strangler Angelo Bruno.
I think they did that because they knew they're heading down the path that things were getting hotter, and they wanted to see the reaction, because they wanted to get that little bit of uh, fear in everybody before they got arrested. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like they wanted more of that feeling that people should be afraid of them, that they were all that. But
Yeah, their escalation from the torture into being more bold. The
yeah,
What I thought was interesting about this case, and we'll probably go into at some point later where we'll do a deep dive into all these we're going to talk about tonight. But we wanted to talk about the specific way
yeah.
they killed these people. It
Well,
was
this
the
was
escalation from that shocked me was the escalation from taking them off on a fire trail somewhere, doing what they did, and then dumping them off a cliff to let's blatantly drive around L.A. and dump her body
yeah. It seems
on a
like it went
lawn.
from just hiding the evidence because you don't want to get caught to,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I kind of enjoyed that. And there they go. And they
Yeah,
just like jumped off from that point.
but that's a
Yes,
large that is a huge jump from going from isolation to out in the open.
it
Um,
is. Well, they're mostly, aren't these guys mostly, or they, people that do this, they have an inert sense of arrogance and coupled with a bit of stupidity that they
mhm.
think they're not going to get caught. They are so arrogant, they think they're like better than everybody else. Nobody's going to be, looking at them enough to get them caught. Or they just don't care, you know?
Yeah, it's like Shay said, they wanted the dopamine rush.
Yeah, it's a serious one from, but it's unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, so
To
those are.
me,
No, go ahead.
that makes them the worst type. To me, it sounds like little person syndrome for sure. Trying
Hmm.
to make yourself feel better by doing these things to another human. It takes a special kind, you know. I do love seeing justice happen to those kind of people, actually. Well,
Yeah, like
in this
Raven,
case, they did.
like Raven said, these guys enjoyed what they doing, and they did.
That's
Um,
right. And they had no remorse except for that they got caught.
they got caught. Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
There was no
if you
remorse.
get a chance, no, I'm not saying rush out and find it and read the transcripts or whatnot. But if you ever
They're
do
hard, people.
yeah,
Warning, they're very hard.
if you ever do stumble upon it and actually take a reading of that, it is not easy to read.
Nope.
Because you can hear even
They're,
reading you can hear the screams and everything that
I
was
mean,
done.
and their enjoyment. That's what bothers me about it. Same thing with Jack the Ripper. I could hear how proud he was of himself, and it just chilled me. And same thing with these guys. They just were thrilled with the fact that they got away with what they got away with before they got caught. Like, it was like an accomplishment. They were so proud of it. They enjoyed talking about it and watching people squirm. Yeah.
Now, there is something I want to bring up, because we're not going into the psychology of what happened with these people to get where they're at. And I did that on purpose, because if I just went through and I started reading what these people did without any names or anything, a lot of these sound like they come straight out of a horror movie.
They sure do.
Like it's somebody's imagination and brain. So I wanted to, with this episode, I wanted to focus on, look, this is the horrors that people can do to one another. And when we actually deep dive into, because we'll at some point we'll deep dive into all of these, and we'll get into the psychology of why they did it. But it's to give you, especially those that are just new to the true crime and serial killers, that don't know a lot about what's going on, that'll stumble upon these or these cases or read these cases.
Right.
This is this is what we look at when we deep dive into serial killers, when we try to find out what makes these people tick.
Yeah.
And it,
like the first episode you did, defined what a serial killer is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we talked about that. We talked about the organizations that track them. Now we're saying this is how they do it. Like, this is what they do.
Yeah.
This is serial killer MO.
This is like you said, this is what they do. And then we'll go into each one of these and tell you why they did it. So it's kind of a progressive step here. So that's
some good ones.
Yeah, that's what we got for the toolbox killers. I'm going to jump over now, and we're going to switch it off here, and we're going to go into Jane Topin.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Jane Topin, the poisoner.
Yeah.
From early on.
Yeah, from really early. So,
Mm-hmm.
Jane.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Jane Topin began training as a nurse in Cambridge Hospital in 1885. During her residency, she used patients as guinea pigs in experiments with morphine and atropine, where she would alter their prescribed doses to see what it did to the nervous system.
Yeah, lovely. Isn't she a lovely human?
Yeah, she spent a lot of time.
Guinea pigs.
She spent a lot of time alone with patients, making up fake charts and medication them to drift in and out of consciousness, and even get into bed with them.
Yeah, 14 years before she was arrested. This was a long time. Yeah.
It is not known whether there was any sexual activity went on with her victims were in this state, but when Jane was asked about her arrest, she answered that she derived a sexual thrill from patients being near death, coming back to life, and then dying again. She would lie in bed with them and hold them close to her as they died. This is actually quite rare for some female serial killers who usually murder for material gain and not sexual satisfaction. And that is one of the reasons I picked Jane. Because a lot of female serial killers, most of them actually, probably 85 to 90% of them are material gain. There's no sexual drive whatsoever behind their killings. It's usually some type of financial gain, whether it be money or property or that type of thing.
Yeah. But it is funny. People were watching her. I mean, she kept getting fired. People on her watch are dying. They kept moving her along. You know.
She was recommended for the prestigious Massachusetts General Hospital in 1889. There she had claimed several more victims before being fired the following year. She briefly returned to Cambridge, but was dismissed after prescribing opiates regularly. Then that's when she began her career as a private nurse. And this is where it all...
How do you do that with your reputation? You get kicked from the hospital for over prescribing and for not doing something right, but then you're going to be a private nurse and just people are going to trust you in their homes. Yeah, it's great.
And despite cases of petty theft, this is where she shines. This is where she really began. So she started her poisoning spree in 1895 by killing her landlords. In 1899, she killed her foster sister Elizabeth with a dose of strychnine. In 1901, she moved in with elderly Alden Davis and his family and Calumet to take care of them after the death of his wife, whom Topin had murdered herself.
Listen, wouldn't this be the part where she is doing it for gain? Think of all those people you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this is going to be financially motivated here,
yeah.
especially on
So
this one.
she switched up.
Yeah,
She learned how to do it.
but
Now
she
she switched up on her motive.
but she really didn't do it for any financial gain because after within weeks of moving in, she'd killed Davis and his two daughters. But then she moved
Yeah.
back to her hometown and began courting her late foster sister's husband.
Well, maybe she just thought it wasn't a good idea after she was there. you know,
Um,
you know, we all want things we can't have, and then we get them, and we don't know it was normally poison them to get out of it, but you know, it does look like gain to me.
yeah.
No, no.
She ended up killing his sister and then poisoned him so she could prove herself by nursing him back to health. She even poisoned herself to invoke sympathy. The ruse didn't work, and he cast her out of his house. He got lucky. His sister didn't get lucky, but he got lucky on that one because he caught on and was like, "You need to leave." So the surviving members of the Davis family ordered a toxicology exam on Alden Davis, the youngest daughter. The report found that she had been poisoned, and local authorities put a police detail on Topin, and she was arrested in October 1901 for murder.
Yeah.
By 1902, she had confessed to 31 different murders. In a rare turn of events, though, on June 23rd of 1902, in Barnstable County Courthouse, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity and committed for life to the Taunton Insane Hospital.
Yeah, I don't get that. She was obviously sane because she kept her hands clean. This kind of murder, there's, oh
Yeah,
no.
and yeah, hero syndrome. I could on that part definitely with the killing.
In the beginning, maybe, but it says she was experimenting, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Now
Direct,
a little side note with this one says soon after the trial, one of William Randolph Hearst's newspapers, the New York Journal, printed what was purported to be Topin's confession to a lawyer that said she had killed more than 31 people, and that she wanted the jury to find her insane so she could eventually have a chance to get released. Whether or not that's truly
Yeah,
her
there you
intentions
go.
is unknown, but she did remain in Taunton for the rest of her life.
Well,
So with this one, you're looking at what started out as sexual, with the lying in bed and holding them close, getting that sexual rush. Now,
that's a little
mind you,
weird.
when we talk about sexual, it's not always.
It's a thought. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not an action.
it
It
yeah,
is the thought process. Sensuality can be a
yeah,
total thought process
and
with a
it
killer.
because when we talk about it being for sexual gain, it's not always physical
Yeah.
gain. It's a lot of times it's just mental.
It is. They could just look at something from a distance and be stimulated. They do
Mhm.
not need to actually do the act to go all the way through and be completed and satisfied with this. That's evident with lots of killers. Well, it's still sensual. It's still sexual based on the premise of how they're getting stimulated. Yeah.
So we see with her, we go from sexual to a financial motivation, whether it be money,
Or a cover up
or
too. Like maybe people are starting to notice,
mhm.
things. Like, like everywhere she works, people disappear. She's moving around her job, you know.
So yeah, there's and then like you said, the hero complex, the savior complex with the poisoning her late foster sister's husband and nursing him back to health type of thing. So
Uh-huh.
where you run a gambit of different reasons Jane did what she did, and that's one of the reasons I thought this was an interesting case to look at is because we got at least three different motivations behind the killings. So, but actually digging into Jane's story is a little It's not as, because it is from the early 1900s, late 1800s. It's a little harder to get a lot of information, but the information you can find when you look into her is actually quite fascinating. It is one I
Yeah.
am looking forward to doing when we do it later.
Yeah.
So I want to push it to you. Do we want to do Leonardo? Do we want to do Jack? Or do we want to do Ted next?
Well, these are your babies. You're reading. What do you feel like? What do you feel like reading? It? I'm gonna be fine with Jack, so nobody worry for me on YouTube or in the chat because we're not reading his words, right, Jay?
Yeah, we're not reading the words.
Okay.
So let's look at
Yeah.
Jack.
He,
All right.
he's brutal. I could even talk about what he did. He's so gross. Oh my god.
Now we know there are 5 confirmed victims of Jack the Ripper, and there is a possibility of maybe 4 others, but there is nothing definitive linking him to. It's just possible.
Right.
So his first victim was Mary Nichols. Her throat was cut so deep she was almost decapitated. Really not
A little
much to go on
excessive.
that one, other than her body was found in an alley in the early mornings, and she, like I said, she was almost completely decapitated.
Yep.
The next one is we have Annie Chapman. Hang on just a half a second. I'm trying to find something here. Okay, so Annie Chapman. Let's see. There was two women walking along Hanbury Street, which suddenly startled from a wide old man came stumbling into the street. The man cried, "Come here!" When they saw the mutilated body of Annie Chapman lying on the ground between the steps and the door. Lord, my notes are all over the place.
Yep.
Sorry. Her head was turned towards the house, and her clothes had been tugged up above her waist, and exposing her red and white striped stockings. Her handkerchief was tied around her throat. She had been wearing this when the killer cut her throat, and it had not, as it had often been asserted, been tied around to stop the head from rolling away. That's what a lot of people thought, is they tied the scarf around her head to stop her head from rolling away. Apparently, for what they're saying, she was actually wearing it when he cut her throat. So her face and hands were covered in blood, and her hands were raised and bent with the palms upward portion, giving her body towards the portion of her body, giving James Kent the impression that she had been struggling and had fought for her throat.
Oh.
That's pretty much it for her.
When she fought back, but it seems like the MO is exactly the same.
Yeah, it's another, looks like from behind.
Yeah, blooding.
Yeah.
Just very quick, very precise. Surgical precision is what they say. Huh?
Now, later on that day, post-mortem revealed that the killer had definitely cut Annie Chapman's womb and had gone off with it.
Yes, that's where I have issue when he starts doing the splitting and the removing and the mutilations. He's very, very adept with the knife. Very proud of himself. Clean cuts. Forensics on it, from what they tell you about it, was rather disturbing about how precise it was. It knew exactly what he was doing. It's not a random stab and then just decide to remove something. It was targeted, planned, precise. That's what makes him so scary to me.
Crone asked, who was the one they thought was the Rippers before Mary? I can pull that up here real quick. Give me just a second.
There were like 5 of them in a village somewhere. Was it on a little place?
So
That
I
they
will.
tried.
All right, here's a list
trying
of
to
victims. So we know that the canonical 5. We got Mary Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Kelly. The one that there was 2 before Mary Nichols, they believe was Jack's. That was Emma Smith and Martha Tambrin, and then 4 more after Mary Kelly: Rose Milet, Alice McKenzie, the Pinchin Street Torso, and Frances Coles.
Yeah.
So and I didn't go. We did not going into any detail on those at this point
Yeah,
because they're not canonical five.
yeah.
But there are some similarities. Um, so, but yeah. So
Based on whatever their criteria was at the time and now, they're
yeah,
not able to
if
actually
you
say.
if
There's many similarities though. Yeah,
yeah, and if you go to jacktheripper.org, it lists all the victims, the possible victims.
right.
I mean
They
this.
they they take more liberties than the actual, like some of the websites Jay and I are looking at will stick only to the facts,
Mm-hmm.
what they could actually weigh in on based on the criteria that they use. But that website will speculate just a little bit more. They don't get crazy about it. They're not going to fill your ear full of you know untruths or anything, but they're just going to go a little farther in what they think and what may have happened. It's more, it is entertaining. I was there.
Yeah, and with Jack the Ripper's, many experts will tell you that there are between as few as four victims and as many as eight.
Right.
Um, so I mean, and if I
Well,
remember right,
because of the fear alone, when Jack the Ripper was there, he held a
yeah,
whole city. There were copycats, people that loved the rush, and so it's really hard to separate. They may use the same MO, but there's things that make them doubt that it is him. Uh, that's as simple as that. There were much more murders that happened during that time. That whole city was in a panic.
yeah,
It was,
the so yeah, even the one they think may not have been Jack's was Catherine Eddowes. Um,
yeah.
so, but that's a whole nother. Um, yeah, where we at
I
here?
think did they just recently do that with analysis, or was that all along?
That's all along. Just because was it Eddowes or because it was the two victims at this. I can't. It's been so long since
Yeah.
I looked at it because there was the double.
Okay.
Um, I think that was
The
Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. So I think Stride might be the one.
okay.
Um, I think not Eddowes. I think it might have been Stride. That might have been the one because it was the double.
Mhm.
What they call the double night. Well, there was two
Yeah.
of them. I believe it was a Stride and Eddowes. So I think
Well,
Stride might be the one.
Mary Jane Kelly's part of the Whitechapel ones, and then there's a whole list of others
Mm-hmm.
that they list as only allegedly. Well, I'm trying to
Uh,
find if the two are there.
so let's go to. Um, so yeah, the where are we at? We're on Stride. Okay.
Yeah.
So after the absence of several weeks, the killer returned to the streets of East End and London, claimed the lives of two victims within an hour of each other. The first victim, of what was dubbed the night of the double event, was Elizabeth Stride. It has seemed highly likely that her killer was interrupted in the act. Unlike the other four canonical Ripper victims, Stride had not been mutilated following her murder. That is why some believe that she may not have been actually murdered by Jack. Because there was
Right.
no mutilation to the body. It was just her throat was cut, and that was about it.
Yep.
However, her murder occurred less than 1 hour before the murder of the fourth victim, Catherine Eddowes.
Right.
So what is believed is, um, so when they found Elizabeth Stride, there was a single knife wound to her neck, and her extremities were still warm to the touch. When she was discovered, leading medical examiners to believe that
Mhm.
she had not been dead very long. She had a
Yep.
handkerchief tied tightly around her neck and was found with no money, further leading to belief that it may have not been a victim of Jack, but may have been from somebody else. So they're thinking that may have been a robbery.
Right.
The
You know,
no, go ahead.
you could say, like, when you're looking at it, there's so many involved, like those five, but then there were 11 in just a little bit longer of a period. They stopped looking at Jack like November, but there was more murders that went on way through to February. Um, they also put out literature that there were so many more killers in the area at the time that they did catch and prosecute, doing some of the same things. But they had to look at everything. They used his modus operandi, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Any time that you use that kind of precision with a knife and did mutilation on a woman and took out organs or mutilated against her face aggressively in a disrespectful way and then posing the body in those sexual ways, they were putting all of that on Jack at first, whether it was him or not. I guess he would have got annoyed, don't you think? Like, if they weren't good ones, he's so arrogant.
Yeah, that's why they think that's one of the reasons they think Catherine Eddowes was so close
Yeah,
is because he was interrupted and wasn't able to do what he was set
normally
out to
does.
do.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
he took Eddowes next, and like you said and what Raven said in the chat too, it's important to know that there were definitely more serial killers in the area at the time.
There was the investigation clearly indicates that, and they had different classifications. They put them all in one group, and then pulled out some of them into Jack's own group. But they're all still included in the time period for a whole group because they're really not sure. They still are not sure. So yeah.
So the next victim, as we had mentioned, is Catherine Eddowes. That was again on September 30th, 1888. Her body was found in Mitre Square about 1:45 a.m. Her
Yep.
injuries were absolutely horrific. Her face it was very
Yeah.
disfigured and her throat was cut. A handkerchief
He,
was found tied. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
he escalation. This is where it gets really
Yeah,
bad.
this is where where we talked about escalation. This is definitely an escalation here. So a handkerchief was found tied around her neck, like the other victims. Her abdomen had been mutilated and her intestines were drawn out and thrown over her right shoulder. With fecal matter was noted smeared all over them. Her body was still warm when medical examiners believed that she had only been dead for about a half an hour when she was found.
Huh?
In other cases, the mutilation was discovered to happen after death. The left kidney was carefully removed, which led investigators to believe the killer had great knowledge of the positions in the organs of the abdominal cavity. So this is
Oh,
where they start thinking he was some kind of either a butcher or a doctor. Um,
yeah. He was good with a knife. And he
so
was loved his knife from
yeah,
what
it
he
would. Yeah,
writes.
he definitely loved his knife. He was, and you can see how he escalated through.
Yeah,
If you just go from go from what he did to Annie Chapman to what he did to Catherine Eddowes.
exactly. He made it more and more clear what he's trying to express, his absolute disrespect for women in their apparent whorish nature.
And that is
Like,
that. Yeah,
just
that
none.
is something a
Yeah,
lot of people or what is known as ripperologists is what they're called.
yeah, yeah.
Believe is one of the things is Jack had an extreme disdain for women,
Yeah. Well, not
especially
just all
prostitutes.
women, like especially those that can entice you
Mm-hmm.
and not give. It seemed to be very directed on a type of woman that would entice him in some way or make it be attractive in some way, but not fulfill whatever it is he's looking for. And or that he had to settle, not to have a real person in his life, maybe, and he had to settle for prostitutes. Who knows?
Yeah, the
It's
list of
really
possible
disrespectful.
the list of who they think Jack could have been is just as long as there were
Yeah.
people in
It's
Whitechapel.
actually
So
more in some cases more, right?
yeah.
It's like everybody. There was so many copycats. There was a full-time job just eliminating those.
So now we're gonna move on to his last victim, Mary Kelly. Um,
Okay.
Now this is what is called the Jack Swan song. This is the last of the canonical five. This is where he was the most brutal.
Mm.
So November 9th, 1988, 1888, the killer known as Jack the Ripper returned and murdered Mary Kelly in a room in Miller's Court. Unlike the other four canonical Rippers, each of those whom had been murdered outdoors and mutilations could have been committed within minutes. Kelly's was murdered within a furnished single room she had rented on 13 Miller's Court, affording the murderer an extensive period of time to eviscerate and mutilate her body. Her body was
See?
by far the most extensively mutilated of the canonical victims, with her mutilations taking her murderer approximately 2 hours to perform. Now, this is the difference between Mary Kelly and the other four, is he had
This
all the
is,
time in the world to do whatever he wanted.
and this may be why we don't see any more murders referred to him.
Yeah, he
Perhaps
may.
he did what he intended to do, and he's done.
Yep.
Maybe he accomplished his goal. Yeah.
Just like another one that was like Ed Kemper. He went out. He did what he wanted to do. He got it done, and he turned himself in because he was afraid he was going to keep going.
Right.
In
This
Kemper's
guy,
part, but in Jack's cases, believe that depends on who you
well,
talk to. He either died, moved to the U.S., was a member of the royal family. I mean, the
yeah.
list is on and on and on.
I
Um,
have I have total speculation on it. I feel all those crazy things, those what ifs in his head. What would that feel like if I could do this, if I could do that? Is done because he really did everything you could to that body, like incredibly. And I don't think he stopped killing. I don't think he's dead. I
yeah,
think he moved on.
I don't think
Uh,
Jack stopped, but I think, like you said, he reached the pinnacle of what he. Um,
Everything I read about Jack is the part that terrifies me is the intelligence and the arrogance. And what comes along with that is knowing when to stop and move on so you don't get caught.
mhm.
Because their long term goal is to just be the best and get the enjoyment out of it that they like. He loves this stuff. If he's alive, he continued. He just did it a different way. He found another experiment, another fancy to prove, and went
There's
through
a
the
theory
process.
out there that Jack the Ripper actually moved to the United States and was actually H. Holmes.
Yeah, well, no, I'm gonna look at that. We had plenty of this kind of stuff in the Americans in the United States. We
So,
have plenty of mutilation of women with aggression
um,
against. Yeah, so,
so now I'm going to go into what Jack actually did. Now this is, and I
okay,
want to read this, and I'm going to try to get through it
okay,
as fast as possible. Um, but we wanted, and I may skip over some things because some things don't need to be said. But we want to give you how just methodical and I don't want to use the word demented, but that's, I'm going to use it.
yeah.
He was in this killing.
We're not trying to upset anybody, but it
Yeah.
is, you know, it is necessary to paint him in the true light that he
Yeah,
was, and we're
because it
not.
gives you an insight on his thought process during this time.
Yes. So
Um,
just understand, it's not Jay, it's Jack.
yeah.
It's all Jack's. Okay.
So I'm going to read through this as quickly as possible. So the whole surface of the abdomen and thighs were removed, and the abdominal cavity emptied of its viscera. The breasts were cut off, the arms mutilated by several jagged wounds, and the face hacked beyond recognition of its features. The tissues of the neck were severed all around down to the bone. The viscera were found in various parts, vis-a-vis the uterus and kidneys, with one breast under the head, the other breast by the right foot, the liver between the feet, the intestines by the right side, and the spleen by the left side of the body. Flaps were removed from the abdomen and thighs on the table. Bed clothing to the right corner was saturated with blood, and the floor beneath a pool of blood covered about 2 foot square. Let's see. We can skip over that because that's just kind of what the room looked like. There's also numerous cuts extending irregularly across all the features. The neck was cut through the skin and other tissue right into the vertebra, between the fifth and sixth being deeply notched. Skin cuts in the front of the neck showed down to the muscle. Air passages were cut to the lower part of the larynx through the cricoid cartilage. Both breasts were more or less removed by circular incisions to the muscles into the ribs.
Yep.
The intercostals between the fourth, fifth, and sixth ribs were cut through.
To provide paralysis.
The right thigh was denuded from the front of the bone. The left calf showed a long gash through skin and tissue into the deep muscle tissues. Both arms and forearms had extensively jagged wounds.
Well,
This is the one. Now, you're going through and the one that I don't understand is this one. The right thumb showed a small superficial incision about 1 inch long.
I think that was his mark, to tell
There,
you the truth. Here's
uh,
the thing Jack did not decapitate them, take off their limbs. He left the body there with everything he did for it.
mm,
He's done. It was his goodbye, I think. He's moving on. I would look for that mark on the thumb on other types of murders not related to his this style, actually.
Yeah,
It
and
just
nobody, and that's the only time I heard anything about the thumb. So,
yeah. But
um,
that's what I mean. I think he added that at the end. It's like he's moving on. Come find me now. Maybe he's disappointed we didn't. Maybe we
so
have, and we're talking about him as somebody else. You know.
yeah, so the lucky thing with this is they believe she was killed by a slash to her throat before the mutilations were performed. So she wasn't
Okay. How
alive to
very
go
fun.
underneath that torture because that would have been extremely worse if she was still alive when all that happened.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
also, I don't think he wanted to put up with the screaming. To tell you the truth, he wanted to do what he wanted to do.
yeah.
So.
So that's Jack. Briefly, I said I've got those are actually from my notes. Um,
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
my Jack the Ripper script that I'm going to be doing here shortly.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
so very not nice to meet you, Jack.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, who we
I'm gonna
got
leave
next
this
up?
to you. Do you want to go over?
Who do we got left? We got Bundy
We got
and we
Ted
got
Bundy
Luciano.
and we got
Luciano.
Leonardo.
Leonardo, right? Chian Shulik. Why don't you give him a break? Bundy's rough. Go for Leonardo. It's like, not that she's great, but she's a little less than Bundy and a hell of a lot less than Jack.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
before we move into Leonardo, the thing I wanted to say with Jack, mind you, is an extreme case. And one of the
Yeah.
things that fascinates people the most about Jack is because we don't know who he was. And
That's
we
it. It's
don't know,
open. We have no
and we
answers.
have no reasons why. We don't know why he did what he did. And
No.
that's one of the things that strikes people the most with Jack is the brutality of his last victim,
Yeah.
Mary Kelly, and the fact that we know nothing about him. It is one of those unsolved cases that will remain unsolved,
They
for all
use
of
this
time.
case for profile. They use this case over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's a case study
It's a
in a
case study.
lot of different things,
Yeah.
psychology wise and stuff. Trying to look into the mind of a killer.
Yeah.
I know they study McQuantico and whatnot. Shay said Jack had to be a medical or a mortician. That's one of the theories. Another theory is he was a
Yeah,
butcher.
but here again, butchers and people in tanners are also good at a life. Look at
Yeah,
Catherine Knight in her fascination of knives. She was real good with hers too.
yeah.
So there are
So
many professions where you're fascinated, but he does seem educated. He does seem fascinated in his letters that he wrote. So I lean more towards a medical professional, an actual doctor. He knew what he was doing.
they had a lot of people do. A lot of people do believe he was some kind of a
Yeah.
doctor.
But a
Uh,
butcher would also know to go for the throat first, the fastest bleed out, no
yeah,
screaming,
but at
real
that
quick.
time, butchers were not known for being not. I'm not saying they were dumb, but they weren't that
Yeah.
intelligent.
That's it.
Um,
That's for me. He's
yeah,
so intelligent, clever, arrogant. I don't know very many arrogant butchers, but no, I think more a professional, a medical professional. Could be a mortician, she's right, but I lean more towards a physician, a surgeon specifically. Yeah.
um, so more on Jack. Which I've got like I said, I have all my notes and stuff. That video will be coming soon. Um,
Ooh,
so
oh boy, something to go to sleep by.
yeah, something to go to. It's a deep dive into Jack and the victims and everything. So, I even go into who they think may have been, and then other
Jack.
victims and stuff in that. So be on the lookout for that
Yeah,
one. Maybe
sounds
if I
good.
get off my butt, I'll do it this weekend. We'll see. So, and then Leonardo, also known, uh, uh,
Oh God. Come on, you can do
the
it.
soap maker.
I'm sorry. I feel very bad for the victims, but this one just hits me my funny bone. She turned them into soap. She did. It's a whole thing. Oh my god. Go
So,
on, I'm sorry.
in 1939, Leonardo heard that her eldest son, Giuseppe, was to join the Italian army in preparation for World War II. Giuseppe was her favorite child, and she was determined to protect him at all costs. She came to the conclusion that his safety required human sacrifices.
So.
She found her victims in 3 middle-aged women, all neighbors, and sources record that Leonardo was something of a fortune teller herself, and that these women visited her for help. Others state that they were just merely friends seeking advice. Whatever the reason, Leonardo began to plan the deaths of these 3 women. So the first one was Faustina Setti. So Faustina Setti was a lifelong spinster who had come to her for help in finding a husband. Leonardo told her of a suitable mate in Pola, but convinced her not to tell anybody of the news. She further convinced Setti to write letters and postcards to relatives and friends. These are to be mailed when she reached Pola, and they were merely to tell them that everything was fine. Yeah, what's that sound like? That kind of sounds like our acid bath killer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Must be something about acid bath soap. I don't know. These tubs of stuff.
Shay says she was just trying to cleanse her soul.
I'm sorry. It's not funny, but damn, it's so funny. I can't help it. Shay. Oh, shit. Oh, God.
On the day of her departure, Setti came to visit Leonardo one last time. Leonardo offered her a glass of drugged wine, then killed her with an axe and dragged her body into the closet. There she cut it into 9 parts, gathering the blood into a basin. In her memoir titled An Embittered Soul's Confessions, Leonardo described what happened next in her official statement. So this is her own words. I threw the pieces into a pot, added 7 kilos of caustic soda, which I had bought to make soap, and stirred the whole mixture until the pieces dissolved into a thick, dark mush that I poured into several buckets and emptied in a nearby septic tank. As for the blood in the basement, I waited until it had coagulated, dried it in the oven, ground it, mixed it with flour, sugar, chocolate, milk, and eggs, as well as a bit of margarine, kneading all the ingredients together. I made lots of crunchy tea cakes and served them to the ladies who come to visit, though Giuseppe and I also ate them.
Oh no, that's horrible. That's horrible. So she used the soap process, but she didn't actually make them into bars of soap. She got rid of the soap making stuff, but then she made bread like cake. She made cake. Wow, that's good, Jen. That's hard.
Some sources record that Leonardo apparently received Setti's life savings, about 30,000 lire, as payment for her services. So, look, financial gain.
Yeah, and cannibalism a little bit. It's crazy. This one's weird.
So her next victim was Francesca Sovai. Leonardo claimed to have found her a job at a school for girls in Piacenza. Like Setti, Francesca was convinced to write postcards to be sent to friends, this time from Correggio, detailing her plans. And also like Setti, Francesca came to visit with Leonardo before her departure. She too was given drugged wine and killed with an axe. That murder occurred on September 5th of 1940, and she was given the same treatment in Setti. And it is also said that Leonardo is said to have obtained 3,000 lire from her second victim.
Oh.
Yeah, like always grateful says, like blood pudding, and she should have made some blood sausage. And Shay's like, yes, always blood sausage. That's how
listen, Irish and European and everything. I get it, but hell to like not these kids. Like, no, she should have just, molded the soap. But anyway.
So her last victim was Virginia. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name. A former soprano said to have sung at La Scala. For her, Leonardo claimed to have found work as a secretary for a mysterious impresario in Florence. I don't know what that is. What is an impresario? Impresario? Impresario.
Is it some kind of in an opera house? Something to do with that?
I don't know.
Hey,
So,
how about I Google for you? You go
there
on.
you go.
I'll Google.
So, the found work with the secretary. As with the other two women, she was told not to tell a single person where she was going. Virginia agreed, and on September 30th, 1940, at her last visit with Leonardo, the pattern of the murder was exactly the same as the first two. According to her statement, she ended up in the pot like the other two. Her flesh was fat and white.
What?
When it had melted, I added a bottle of cologne, and after a long time on the boil, I was able to make some of the most acceptable creamy soap. I gave bars to neighbors and acquaintances. The cakes, too, were better. That woman was really sweet.
Okay, listen. We were close with the impresario. It is a person who organizes and often finances concerts, plays, or operas. Historically, the manager of a theatrical or operatic company. So
okay.
Yeah.
And for her...
But damn, she finally made soap out of them. Really made soap out of them.
And the cakes were better because they were really sweet.
I mean, not really glad, but... Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're good. They're better that way. So is the soap. You know, a little human touch
from
to it.
from Virginia, it was reported that she received 50,000 lire and assorted jewels. So this is a case of two things. We have what she believed to be human sacrifices to keep her son safe and financial gain.
Yeah.
She said she was cleaning the whole neighborhood.
She was, and feeding them well too. You know, promoting her business, scrubbing them up.
So apparently, my mom said great artist, and then said Dad was wrong. So I'm guessing my dad was like a great artist, and nope, that's not it.
No. I think they're talking about the impresario.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is the encouragement with great artists. You're very, very close.
So yeah, so with her. And this now with her though. None of it didn't escalate. It didn't de-escalate. She did the exact same thing to each of her victims. So what that says to me is there was no escalation for it. This was a specific goal. Killing. That it was the financial aspect, like we said, most female serial killers kill for financial gain. And as you can tell, she. Between the three victims, she had received just over 83,000 lire and jewels and other payments from these women. At the same time, believing she had protected her son Giuseppe in World War II by these human sacrifices. Now, I didn't look extremely deep into this, so I don't know what happened to her son, whether he made it out of World War II or not. But when we do a deep dive into the soap lady, we'll definitely let you know, or unless somebody knows the story and let us know. Yeah. So the last one is Bundy.
Mr. Bundy.
Now Bundy was convicted of killing 30 different women. We're not going to go through 30. I believe I'm just going to go over a couple of them. I think I've got 7, but I don't think we're going to go through all 7. But we can give you. We'll go through some, especially the last one.
Okay.
So, the first one of Bundy's victims is Lori Trumbull. So. Let's see. So, won't go any details in what happened beforehand, but both girls. It was Lori. So her and her. All right, hang on a second. Okay, there it is. So Lisa Wick and Lori Trumbull had roomed together, and both of them were savagely attacked in their room at night. Both girls had been savagely bludgeoned, but Lori Trumbull did not survive the attack, but Lisa did, possibly because of the soft rollers that she had gone to bed wearing. So basically, what Bundy did with this one is he broke into the room and basically beat him over the head with a blood-covered piece of wood that was found in a nearby lot. So, I mean, nothing. I can't say nothing extraordinary about this one other than he broke into their house, beat him in the head with a
Right.
thing.
I think that was his consistency, right? His
He was
rape, beating with a metal bar, and strangulation. Like the
metal bar, wooden thing.
Yep.
But the biggest thing with Bundy was the way he got to some of these women.
Charm.
The next one we'll go over is Joni Lenz. So she had went to sleep in her basement room of the big house with several people rented together. The next afternoon, as she hadn't appeared in the morning, the housemates went and checked on her to find her laying in bed. Her face and hair had been matted with blood. She had been beaten with a metal rod of the broken bed frame, and they pulled the covers back.
Right.
To her horror, they defined that the rod had been brutally jammed into her lady bits.
Yeah.
The incredible
survived.
thing is the poor girl lived through the attack.
Yeah. Yes. Horrible.
It left
1974.
irreparable damage to her internal organs, and she never regained memory of the attack, and it also left her severely brain damaged.
About the brain damage, very sad, but I'm kind of happy she doesn't remember.
Yeah, it is very, very lucky that she does not remember what happened. So there we go. This was so Lonnie Trumbull was in 1966. Joan Lenz was in 1974. Now there are other victims believed between Lonnie and Joni, but like I said, over the 30 victims, I wasn't going to to bring home 30 up on this
there's
one.
quite a bit. Yeah.
So we're gonna move to 1976 to Karen Campbell.
Yeah.
So even though she had slight case of flu, Karen took the kids skiing and sightseeing with their father, who attended a seminar. Later, they ate dinner with friends and returned to the inn where they were staying and settled in a lodge. Now, this is in Aspen, Colorado. So I should state that Lonnie was in Seattle.
Yeah, and this one is in
and so was
Salt
Joni.
Lake. Yeah.
So they settled in a lounge, and Karen remembered the magazine she left in her room and went to retrieve it. When she hadn't returned in a while, her fiancé went to find her. Couldn't find her. She just simply vanished into thin air. This was January 12th. On February 18th, she was found in a snowbank off of Owl Creek Road, not far from the inn where she had been vacationing. She lay in a blood-stained snowbank, nude, battered, and cut. It is likely that she was also raped. Bundy did confess to her murder before his execution. So now we've escalated into kidnapping.
Yeah. So you're in 75. I don't know why I was down in 76, but yeah, okay. So, oh man, there's quite a few in 75.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was so that was January 12th, 76. That is weird because it says disappeared.
Murderpedia
Yeah, it says disappeared in 76 and found in 75. So
I think it's in 75 because they have it in front of all those other victims for January 12th.
So it's probably,
in
I think it was a mistype.
Because there's a bunch of other people in Colorado before he moves on
Into Utah.
Utah, and then eventually in 76 to Salt Lake. Well, yeah.
So this would have been 75.
Yeah.
So like I said, now we've escalated into kidnapping now instead of just B&E.
Yeah.
Let's see which the next one we should go over.
Yeah, maybe he's getting more involved. He knows what he wants to do. He has to have a more controlled environment, not theirs.
So we'll move to Melissa Smith. This was we'll go back to 74.
Okay.
So she had disappeared. She never made it home and never made it to a party that she was supposed to be going to. She was found battered and noon 9 days later, not far from a small town she had grown up in. Her head was severely beaten in with perhaps a crowbar, and her body had been battered before she had died.
Right.
She had then been strangled, raped, and sodomized. Bundy did confess to her on that one. So there's another. What was I looking for? Another telltale, like you had mentioned before, with the attacks with the crowbar. There's something he was known quite frequent to use was the crowbar, but it was the one that stuck out with this one is how bad he beat her with it
Yeah.
before she had died.
She may have fought too much. I don't know.
And Raven's Shay said, wasn't Bundy's mom a little crazy too? And Raven said, I thought he had a relatively normal upbringing. It's complicated because for a long time his mom was his aunt.
Yes. So there's some trust
Yeah,
issues
there's
misinformation, and your world
lied
getting torn up.
Yeah, there's yeah, his childhood definitely plays a key role into why he did what he did. And that deep dive into Bundy will be definitely an interesting one once we go over that one. So,
Okay.
I'm gonna pull this last one, and then we're gonna talk a little bit. This last one is Lisa Levy. This is from 1978 in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Lisa had worked all day and went to a popular campus disco at 10 p.m. with her sorority sisters, only staying half an hour because she was tired from working all day and went home to bed. Her roommate had been gone for the weekend, so she was in the dorm alone. She apparently hadn't wakened to all the hysteria coming from the rooms when Karen and Kathy were found. And she would never wake again. Now, this is the sorority house attack. There were 4 women that were attacked by Ted at this point. Karen and Kathy were 2 of the victims. I don't remember who the 4th one was because I didn't get any of that written down. But she would never wake again. An officer found her with a pulse, began CPR and cardio and CPR. She died before she reached the hospital. Her right nipple had been almost bitten off. Her left collarbone was broken, and she had been strangled. A Clairol hairspray bottle had been jammed into her lady bitch, and there was a double bite mark on her left butt cheek that would help identify and send Bundy to the electric chair.
This is aggressive in sexual nature, definitely, before killing.
So Bundy is textbook. Yeah, those were after his escape.
That's right, after his escape. That's right. He did get sentenced a couple times. Yeah.
The escalation of Bundy is one of, and for me, is not the most fascinating thing about Bundy. My fascination with Bundy is his personality, but you can see the escalation and the brutality when you start from his first victims and work your way up all the way to the last 4.
Yeah, I wouldn't exactly call him charming in his approach with women, for sure. But, I mean, he gets them there. Well, you know how he treats them after. Well, there are quite a few victims. What did he confess to? 30, Jay? 30?
Yeah, he was convicted of all 30.
And they are saying they think he may have done up to 35, but there's speculation from anywhere from 29 to 100 that match some of his MO.
According to Bundy, there was only 30.
Yeah, well, why would we believe a murderer?
Well, here's the thing with Bundy. When he started talking and started confessing, he gave him everything.
Yeah, but he's also a charmer.
But he had nothing left to. He had nothing left to give them. All he could do.
I'm sure he only gave them the good ones. I'm sure there's plenty before. You know, I do believe so.
See, and I don't think so. I think he gave them everything, because the more he talked, the more he was in the limelight, the more he would. the
True,
more
but
he would be, like I said, he would be thrust into the limelight. The more popular he would be, the more charming he could become.
okay. Okay,
So
well, I see that point.
yeah,
And if
so
you use that point that he wants limelight, then why would he tell them everything? If he's going to go to jail, he's going to want to
well,
put stuff out later. I'm
he
sure he held back.
he had already he knew he was going to be he was dead. He knew he was going to get the lecture chair. He knew it was over. So yeah,
I
listen
think
to
he knew.
if you go listen to his tapes. In the interviews from Bundy, it's what I get. I don't think he held anything back. I think he told them everything. He even told them about girls he couldn't even remember their names.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think confessed and convicted. And Raven said no. The Netflix movie said he never confessed.
Oh, that's right. Netflix, they know everything. We forgot. That's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
well, the Netflix movie was based on his girlfriend's book, so where it was a good movie, it was yeah.
Yeah.
um, but like I said, Bundy's case is the textbook escalation.
Yeah.
And it
Exactly.
is why.
There's real sexual and also a good case on sexual escalation
Yep,
in
sexual
crime.
escalation,
Yeah.
the sexual brutality. And the thing with Bundy is you listen to him talk and you watch him. It's hard to think that that man was capable of that much brutality.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most fascinating things about him. It's just hard to believe that someone like and intelligent and likable as Bundy was capable of these brutal attacks and killings of these 30 women.
It's hard. It's hard to put him in that light. Like I don't,
Yeah,
because I know all of this, it's hard for me to see him as so genuine and all. I mean, some people can see a nice guy that's, actually a shyster. You know.
so um so that was our look at 5 different serial killers, 3 men, 3 women, 2 women, and the differences between their methods of killing and their methods of escalation. When you start to study and you start to learn about serial killers, that is when you look into these things, you can get an insight to what they're thinking. Um, and it's not something you pick up on. It is definitely it's a study. You definitely need to study and you need to learn.
I agree.
Yeah, always and Raven agree. He had those creepy eyes though.
That's it. Like I don't like his look. Are you guys with me? Because there's just something. I don't care how charming he is. When I look at him, I'm like, oh hell no. Like I don't know.
Yeah, but
It would take a bit of effort on your
think
part.
about this though. You know Bundy as who Bundy was. Now imagine if you didn't know who he was.
He's still got that look, Jay. Like it's not a good look for me. There you go. It's not my type. Crazy eyes. I usually avoid that at all costs.
Crazy eye
There's just
Bundy.
something there. Yeah, crazy eyeball there. I agree with them. There's something about these pictures that have his eyes that I'm just like, how did they not see it? It's like Manson. How did people not see it? When you put Charles Manson up on the screen, how did people not see the crazy in those eyes? Like, seriously. Like,
It's the charisma. They were
nah.
very charismatic people, and that's how they a lot of these serial killers
Yeah.
that aren't the brutal ones like the ones we covered
Yes.
tonight, with the exception of Bundy. That's how
Yeah.
they got away with it. They were charming. They were very well spoken.
You know what? I'm with Raven. That Bundy, for particular, swarmy, like a used car salesman. That's the look of Ted Bundy. Everybody says he's charismatic, and I'm like, yeah, you probably buy used cars from the guy in the cheap suit too on the lot without checking it out because I don't see the charm. I see the push. I see the swarm. I see the trying to convince me and stuff, and the crazy eyes. I see crazy. You know.
uh, yeah. So uh, Bundy is definitely when they talk when it's always funny and interesting because when they talk about the major serial killers, Bundy is always usually the first one brought up. And there's a reason behind that is because of his one, the brutality of his killings, two, the way he went about it, how intelligent he was, how charming he was. It all these things these are textbook serial killer things. These are things that they look for when they're looking for a serial killer, and especially the ones that get away with it for so long. These are the type of people. When we look at, you look at other ones like BTK. Dennis Rader was an extremely charming man. But he bind him, torture, killing him. That's where he got the BTK from.
Yep.
There were and you get people like Golden State, where he was a cop, so he was right there. He knew what he needed to do to get away with it. He was very smart, very intelligent man, and that is why a lot of serial killers will get away with killing for so long. Is because they're very smart, they're very intelligent, and we're not talking like high IQ smart. We're talking methodical in what they do. Very smart in the way they go about what they're doing. If you look at the two serial killers we were talking about on Monday, the shopping cart killer and the real estate killer, neither one of them were intelligent in the way they went about their killing. That's why they got caught.
They might have been a little clever, thinking of it. I think Bundy's clever. I don't think he's intelligent.
Well, it's a matter it's a matter of how you can interpret. Excuse me. What's the word? Interpretate. Clever with smart.
Well, yeah. Well, out of all of those three, intelligent, clever, and smart, the highest word would be intelligent. Yeah. And then I would put smart, and then I'd put clever after that. Clever is just the knack to find the hook and maybe go that way and stay out of trouble a little bit. It's not necessarily smart.
No. Raven said he was another one that looked. BTK was another one that just looked untrustworthy. She doesn't see how he got away with anything.
I don't. We look at these pictures and we're like, okay, like how are they walking around and nobody going, all right, like what's going on here? But I hear you.
So I hope you enjoyed and learned some stuff on this podcast. Is one thing we always try to do is we hope you learn some things, and that you're interested in this conversation and you're into. Yeah, you messed up the word and no one knows it.
I think you meant to say interpretation.
There you go, interpretation.
This is the best. I am the best co-host in the world. See that? Saved your ass again, Jay.
But like I said, one of the biggest things that I want to do with this channel is I want to inform people. I want them to learn, and understand things.
Look at it a little different, a little further.
Yeah, looking at it deeper, looking into it more than just what they did. And it's to look into why they did it. And with Mondays, we have this partnership, me and Claire, that I know a lot of our murder minions follow us on Mondays and Thursdays. Is the way we go about it. We try to deep dive into every aspect of a case. When Claire's
good coverage
on Monday, on Monday, Claire's Monday show, we try to look at the legal aspects of it, and then on Thursday show we try to look at the psychological aspects, trying to give you a broad understanding of these cases. Like I said, I really hope that you guys are enjoying what you're hearing.
Yes.
And I will, like I said at the top of the show, I am starting a new job on Saturday. So I will have to get with you guys later on whether or not the days of the week I'll be able to stream these. We may have to change up some dates and some times. So
well, we'll schedule and then you get in touch with me and we can move things accordingly, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, once I get my schedule, I'll get with Claire and then we'll set up
It's
time
good.
frame for next week. It may have to be a week by week basis because I don't know how their schedules work.
Sometimes with the new jobs, that's how it works.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty flexible, so we'll still be putting out content,
Yeah.
people. We just don't know when to tell you. I know always. I do. I've been drinking. I really have. You know, and I did. My favorite right now is a nice Sempi Almanac. It's in there. It's
Oh,
in there.
Shay, yeah, the West Memphis 3 is
Yeah,
going
that's
to
all.
be a very interesting look at it. That one I'm gonna want to do in a split session with Claire, because there
Yeah,
is so much because there's a lot of legal stuff with the West
yeah,
Memphis 3, and there's a lot of other things.
yeah.
So that'll be a good split between the shows.
What
Um,
I like about that one is your psychological part proves what's going on in the legal part,
hmm
why it should fall apart. So I think it's really good to do that one.
Yeah. So yeah, and thank you for that, Shay. I have looked at it a little bit,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah,
there's some good stuff there. Uh,
yep,
if you are interested in looking into the West Memphis 3 before we get into it, I highly recommend True Crime Garage, and look at
yeah,
their deep dive into it. And I also recommend Paradise Lost and Paradise Lost 2 on
yeah,
HBO if you have that.
yeah.
Watching those because that'll give you a really good. They go really good into the case in both Paradise Lost and Paradise
Yeah.
Lost 2.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to wrap
Okay.
that up here. Unless you've got something else you wanted to mention.
No,
You got anything
no,
else?
no, I'm good. I'll see everybody at Mayhem if you come. See you tomorrow morning over at Chris and Jay's channel, Hereticals,
Yeah.
for the 100th episode, very early in the morning.
Did Shay send us the court transcripts? Do you remember?
Shay sent us something,
Yeah,
and I
I
think she
don't.
sent it to you too. Is it on the Del? Is that on the Delphi? I know you sent me some. Hold on. It was Twitter, yes. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
finding you, girl. Mm, mm, mm.
Raven says try just straight up pineapple juice, not a cocktail or such. It cuts down the mucus.
Yeah, I know. I've been drinking. I drink a lot of pineapple and eat a lot of pineapple regularly. It does break up the mucus. It has helped.
Oh.
Absolutely great.
Always Grateful says they made an arrest of the boyfriend in the case from New Orleans from the other day. That's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's very good.
So.
Yeah.
Um.
The
Yeah.
one that was right, yeah, that was going on while
Yeah.
we were looking at it. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
thank you all uh, for joining us again for another episode of True Serial Live.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully, time permitting, maybe I'll get an actual video out this weekend. Like I said, this depends on what I've got going on with the new job. But we will have another actual video coming out. And then Claire, once her voice gets back to normal, she's finally gonna get
If
us the fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah, that's good. I've been trying to do that for so long, and
I
I
tell you
just
what,
can't do it under. I can't do Poe this bad. I just can't do that to Poe. I love Poe. I can't read him like this. It's just wrong. Yeah, but
and I will
I'm working on
try
it.
and see what I can do about getting you the Walrus and the Carpenter this weekend too.
I would love that. I would
So,
love that. I could sound like a walrus. I mean, this would work for a walrus. You send me that one. And Shay, yes, I got your Google Dot on the Memphis 3. Thank you very much.
so.
Yeah.
All right.
I just saw it. Thank
So
you. And I think
thank.
you got it too, Jay, because it
Yep.
says she forwarded to
Yep,
you.
yep, I got it. I couldn't remember if the legal transcripts, the court transcripts was in
Because you
there or
guys
not.
are so good to us, you murder minions. You all send us lovely things. I want to thank Always Createful for all the stuff she sends us, even on the Colts. Damn, it's so much easier to have like 20 or 30 files to go through instead of finding them individual. But it's really interesting. You send some really good stuff. We
Oh,
appreciate it. Jay and
there
I really appreciate it.
we do.
Your con- we did good.
Yeah. There is one I did want to mention. Righteous Verse this Saturday has got an episode on the charisma of cult
Um,
leaders.
They do, and
Should
they do stuff. They did Nexium before, short. It's not going to be very long. 8 o'clock Eastern's
yeah.
time.
So that should be an
Um,
interesting watch if you guys get around to
yeah,
that. Check out
yeah,
Righteous Verse and the charisma of
yeah,
cult leaders. So
yeah. They do serious ones on cults, and they did a really funny one on Steve as a cult leader that was hysterical. Like these girls are intelligent and bright, and they can address the issue, but they're also funny as hell. So it should be entertaining and informative at the same time. I'll be there. I'll be watching that for sure. I
So
tweeted it. So yeah,
until next time, you everyone, thank you for joining us. Thank you all the murder minions.
yeah.
Um,
Thank you guys.
thank you for joining us, and hope you learned something new. And as always, take care of yourself, and we will see you later.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.